a little bit late. So I'd love to get going. We have lots of people online. Thank you so much for joining us for the Washington Street Collaborative Workgroup meeting this morning, October 24th at 11 a.m. I want to convene an open session, and we do have a quorum. So we are good to move forward. Yep. And I'm curious if there is any public comment.
This is one of those kind of meetings.
You never know. Sometimes we do have public comment. Okay. We have no public comment this morning. All right, well, we will jump into minutes from July 11th, September 26th, and October 3rd.
Approval?
Second.
All in favor? We will have to do we have to do roll call? I'm looking where everyone is. Nope. Everyone's okay. Everyone's in the room.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
How many
Okay.
actual members do we have?
Now, are those minutes available somewhere if we can read it?
Yes, they were sent in the email.
I read them, they were okay. One
I
of them missing something and I sent it to her.
Moving right along, we are ready to go into the French's Street Beach Improvement Project, and I'm probably turning it over to Laura at this point.
Yes. Hi, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Before we jump in, I want to introduce my colleague, Lena Smart. She is joining us today. She's going to be stepping in as project manager as Lynn had to take a step back for another commitment. So Lena, you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Lena here. Very excited to be starting this project. Seems like a great team, great site. Coming from the New York office in Scape, and just excited to get to know you all.
Yes. And she is a project manager and designer extraordinaire. So we're very lucky to have her. We also have Kate with us from Scape today, who I think you met last time. Great. So Lena's going to share slides. We will walk through some of our updates, and Todd and his team have some updates as well. Great. All right, so I'll kick us off, and then I'll hand it over to Lena to walk through some of our design updates since we were last together. All right, so here we are. So we're going to just refresh on where we are in the schedule. Talk a little bit about the feedback that we received from this group last time we met, what that means in terms of the design parameters, both from your feedback and from the technical analysis that Woods Hole Group and PAR have been doing since we met. And then we'll show you some updates to the plan and the cross-section of the project. And then we'll turn it over to Todd, who's going to dig in more on some of the next steps on permitting. Okay, so just with where we are, here we are in schematic design, working towards an end of year submission with the cost analysis and operations and maintenance guidance happening into the new year. So nothing new there. And then, yeah, so we'll talk through what we heard last time. So this was an in-progress sketch that we showed you last time. We think there was, a lot of opportunity to refine it, and we're really happy with how the direction it's taken. So this is just on the previous plan, some notes about what we discussed with you all. So first of all, allowing kind of more space between the boardwalk as it lands on the beach and the mean high water. That's going to mean both more resilience for the project itself and less need to maintain it. You all had indicated in a previous discussion that you liked the swoop direction, so that's what we've been building on, the dune swoop. We also are factoring in the future connection, and I think we've come to a good place in terms of how we're starting to resolve having it work in phase one, but really set up that future connection. We have been looking at the kayak concession. Now we have a better understanding after our conversation last time about the leasing area that they have purview to. And I know Leah's been trying to set up a meeting with them as well, although I don't think that's on the books yet. But you'll see we've adapted the plan to accommodate what we understand their needs are. And that includes the restroom access, given that there's sanitary sewer service provided there. And then lastly, we had said last time that we would study ADA access at both entrances to the site. You'll see in our design that based on some technical constraints with grading and the resource area, we are still showing a stair on the north side where that crosswalk is, but we think we have a good solution for providing an ADA pathway that gets you to the accessible entrance. So more to come on that, but we have studied that in detail as well since we met. If we go to the next slide, maybe I can talk about the design parameters and then I'll hand it over to you, Lena, to talk about where we are with the design. So these are a lot of the sort of great conversations we've had with the Woods Hole Group team and the PAR team, understanding what are the constraints, both in terms of grading a dune that's going to not need a lot of maintenance and sustain into the future and perform its resilience goals, and also create something that we believe will be as permeable as possible. So we're trying to kind of minimize some of the redundant access. We had 2 points of access down to the beach before, so we're minimizing that because of permeability discussions. We have a cross section of the dune that is desired with a steeper slope back towards Washington Street, a 15-foot minimum dune crest and approximately a 10-foot one slope down to the water. So that's been a given in our design. We're maintaining that clear zone for the kayak concession. What else? We are considering the future extension, as I mentioned. We're ensuring that we're not building structure within the dune resource area that's been delineated. And then we're also thinking, and this is something we've really dug into in the last couple of weeks, is how do we connect with both, with the near-term condition at the neighbor's property, and then how do we also enable longer-term connections if desired. And I think that's it, and accessibility. So all of those things are going in. It's kind of like threading the needle to be able to meet all of those different constraints and guidelines. So I'll pass it to you, Lena. Maybe you can walk through where we are with the design.
Yeah, great. Thanks for kicking us off, Laura. I think definitely in my weeks I've been on this project, it's a small site, but a complicated one.
Yeah.
So where we've landed, you'll see on this plan of we've kind of consolidated some of those pathways to kind of streamline this kind of more one fluid geometry of the boardwalk. As Laura mentioned, there are 2 accesses along Washington Street, the one more further on the north, working with that existing sidewalk. We did have to introduce a stair just given the grading constraints. But you see we've also introduced a sidewalk that you can then walk along Washington Street to access that accessible entrance on the more southern side of the site. Where we've also introduced a parking spot so you could park there, get your car, and then immediately kind of have access to the beach. You'll see we've also still preserved that ramp for beach access. There's also now an overlook, which can then be studied to kind of continue on and be a future phase. We've also included some seating there, and so you can kind of sit as a place of rest. We're also working with the kind of existing restroom structure and some kind of kayak storage to the south of the site, and working with those dune constraints. So just to look more specifically at the gradings, this is a lot of what has been informing this design. You can see on the beach side, we've been consistent 10-to-1 slope. We do get a little bit tighter as 7-to-1 as you get more landward. And then on the other side of that beach crest, you're at a 5-to-1 or a 3-to-1. You'll also see in this plan how we've created some retaining walls just to retain that grade to kind of get to where we need to be and have a more consistent crest of the slope or crest of the dune. The idea is that the retaining wall on the northern side would be temporary, and when we have phase 2, they can kind of be integrated into the adjacent parcel. So that's kind of what's been informing where the location of this boardwalk is, as well as elevation, and where those sloping walkways are. And then just kind of looking at that sectionally, Again, you have those kind of different 10-to-1 or 7-to-1, the dune crest where the boardwalk is, and then the 5-to-1 is you get in the landward side. Laura, I don't know if you had anything else to add here before I move on.
I was just going to pause and say, I know we've been working really closely, multiple meetings in the last couple of weeks with Joe and Kirk and the Woods Whole Group team, and Todd and Adrian and the PAR team. So just would open it up if any of you all want to comment on any aspects of the design we might have missed in describing it.
Can you see me muttering in the background, Laura?
I can't see you muttering. You're very tiny, but please tell me what you're muttering.
No, I have a question, and this is really just for informational purposes.
Sure.
I forget, and this is what I was asking Liz, I forget what the slope requirements are for a coastal bank, and just making sure that we're within the dune and not somehow triggering regulations for a coastal bank. And if we are triggering regulations for a coastal bank, that we've accommodated that. I mean, I think this is not as big a slope, but I just want to make sure.
Is that something you can comment on, Joe, or if not, we can get back to you?
I can answer that question.
Oh, perfect. Adrian, thank you.
Yeah, we are working, yeah, no problem. We're working in the dune. There will be no coastal
Okay.
on the site.
Okay, based on the slope. Okay. I couldn't remember what the slope requirements were for defining a bank locally. Thanks.
Great.
The slope requirements are when you switch from greater than 4-to-1. And where your floodplain is in regard to that. So we're all under that on the seaward side.
Perfect, thank you. That was exactly what I was wondering.
Great. So I'm going to move on to some of the materiality that we've been looking at. So we are going to have guardrails in this condition, just given that we have to get up to a 8% or 8-foot elevation from 4.5 pretty quickly. So you'll see kind of the look and feel that we're thinking for this boardwalk. The guardrails, you can see kind of bottom right, something that is accessible but yet open, so to kind of allow for the views. We want it to create kind of an open view from Washington Street, the boardwalk to the beach as much as possible. And just kind of simplicity, you'll see these precedent images are just kind of very simple wooden boardwalk with simple edge conditions. So that's kind of what we're going to be working with and hoping to use for this design. As mentioned, we've also introduced some seating areas. These are just some local precedents that have kind of just some simple wooden seating, working with the kind of design that is already kind of in the area and working off of that. So again, something very simple, working with that wood as a materiality, but also comfortable, because we want it to be accessible for folks who are visiting.
Lena, this is Matt. My thoughts are match Easy Street, the picture you have on the top right.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that sort of, that to me is, I don't think it needs to be a handrail or anything. So that's just me.
Yeah.
Did you say you don't think it needs to be a handrail?
I don't think it needs to be up at, at waist height.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think
just
you
a
keep it as
backless bench.
inintrusive as possible. That's legal.
Right.
So.
Okay.
We had to do a handicap ramp at a historic building, and, they were trying to make us put a guardrail and handrails and all this. And we were able to do it with something that's sort of like the Francis Beach on the bottom left legally, because the drop wasn't too big. And I think that was less intrusive, and it didn't take away from the building, which it would have. And so I think the same thing here, if we can keep it, down low so that we're not taking away from the beach, we're better off.
Maybe I think that's a great point, Matt. And I want to show you like kind of a detail of this. We're going to be developing a 3D view that will allow you to sort of see how this looks on the ground as a pedestrian. But if you go back to the plan for a second, Lena, we have been trying to do exactly what you're saying, which is to minimize the need for any kind of a guardrail that is across the whole boardwalk. So that means we're having to fine tune, the top of deck to the top of dune can't be more than an 18-inch drop. And so we have achieved that, I believe, consistently. So that's great. The place that we are going to need a rail is going up the ramp and back down to the beach. And that's because we had to do an 8.33% slope in order to get up to where we need to be. But we think that, you know, there's some really nice examples. In fact, I think it's the Long Pond example where there's sort of the rail that's just like the trip stop at the edge of the boardwalk that goes up to, you know, kind of steps up to a wooden handrail. We think we can do that elegantly, but it's something we're going to continue to study. Just with the grading constraints, we couldn't do a 5% slope and get up to where we needed to be, which would, you know, eliminate the rail requirement.
A thought for that,
Sure.
for the if the ramp for beach access is gonna be how the concessionaire, the kayak guy
Yep.
gets his stuff on and off the beach,
Yes.
then that, you know, you have to think about, that could be possible, very easy with nothing there. It may be
Mhm.
more difficult if you've got a handrail there.
Right.
He may not be able to get as many at a time. They might not be able to go up sideways, whatever. So I think, and if that's the case, then his employee's just gonna go
It's going to
over
go over the dune, which we don't want. Yeah.
over the dune, which you don't want. So
Yeah.
I think I would be thinking about, like, how is it gonna be used when you're
Mhm.
designing that? And if we even have to ask for a exemption on that portion of it, because we know
Mhm.
how it's gonna be used, I would say we try to do that, but that's
Okay.
me.
No, that's a helpful comment. We'll study that in 3 dimensions. And we're also trying to get a meeting on the books with them to really understand their operational needs a little bit more too. I think before we get into the permitting, let's pause here. I know that the form of the design has changed slightly. I think what we like about it is it's meeting all those many constraints you saw on the previous slide. And it's also setting up both an overlook today and an opportunity that is flexible in terms of the way it might extend in the future, if that were an opportunity. And we took out a lot of the redundancy. So you're keeping, you know, the boardwalk at this higher elevation 9, such that it could connect farther north in a couple of different alignments, depending on what we find in the future needs. So, you know, took a shot at simplifying it, but definitely welcome feedback as we continue to refine it.
So Laura, on the north side,
Yep.
before we were talking about having like a step or stairs down to be able to get to the beach that way too, and now it just looks like you have to use that ramp to get onto the beach.
Right. We were trying to minimize impact down to the beach, I would say, and maybe Todd or Adrian could comment on this a little bit too. We were trying to focus on one point of access. Certainly the design could work with an additional stair get down as well. But I think I would defer to Todd and Adrian on the best approach in terms of permittability.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I think there's been an evolution of this in working hard with our permitting team. Adrian's been spearheading this and working with our design teams on minimizing impacts as much as possible and understanding that there are going to be some potential sacrificial components that if we want to put it in, I think the stair can definitely be put on the scope, and just understand that that might be something that we have to pull back on from a permitting standpoint. If they want less impact, those are some of the areas that may be, I don't want to use the word sacrificial, but may be something that is understood that it might not happen. And I think we can definitely add something in there if the desire is to have a second access from that end in the future expansion area on the north, and keep it as a simple stair that could even be considered as when we're going through permitting as a seasonal stair potentially if needed to do that, more so than an active hard structure in there.
Just
I'm
a second.
scribbling. Yeah.
Just a second that, and Liz is doing more of the Conservation Commission work these days, so she'd probably be able to speak to it more, but I have run into situations where they say, well, you don't need 2 access points. You should just have 1 because it's more impact.
Right.
So,
I like the idea of the temporary
yeah,
option because that's usually more permittable.
Okay.
I like the sacrificial, put it on knowing it's going.
Yeah, you can do any of it.
Yeah, but put it on so
Right.
that they can do their job and then we get what we want.
Right,
I think that's great.
we can back off to the seasonal,
Yes.
and then if we have to, we back off to nothing.
Okay, understood. I mean, that's an easy modification.
I like it's Matt again. I like where you've put the benches back against the back. I think that's a better setup than prior.
Okay,
One question I have is could the left end of it, the overlook end?
Yep.
That looks like it's able to go onto a walk in front of the houses and onto the beach in front if that ever happens. Can it also go along to the sidewalk side? You know, could it someday, like it would have to change, but because I think I've talked to a couple of the people there, they don't necessarily want the walkway in front of their house. They understand, they've got all the busyness behind them and on the road now. And
Mhm.
so if, and I think one that we've got now is moving their house forward. Not for this reason, but they're just changing the layout down there. It's a little further to the right, but anyway, I want to just see could that be, if people move their house a scooch forward someday and we went along beside the road on that side of the road, would this
Yeah.
time that or not?
Good question. Maybe, Lena, would you mind flipping forward to the grading plan? So based on what we've been working on with Kirk and the Woods Whole Group team, well, the whole team, we're looking at a profile that has a steeper slope here. And then we get to, you essentially have to get up that dune slope in a way that's, maintainable. And then you can, have the dune crest and the boardwalk path can sit on top of it. So I think what we're looking at, as a sort of maxed out condition might be pulled a slight bit back from here, but it could come further back, towards the road. And I guess, if that, we could think about the geometry of this thing if it wanted to go more, this way than say that way.
I'm not necessarily saying to change it. I'm saying, is there the option in the future from this design to, to swerve it out to the road as well, with a change, not just swerve it in the front of the buildings.
Yeah. I think there is with it maybe some tweaks to the geometry. I think the approach we've been taking is we don't want to build anything today that isn't compatible with a range of future possibilities. So yeah, that would be my take. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, we've been taking the approach that we're not going to dismantle really anything except for maybe some, curbing to just expand on it and go and
Or a seasonal stair, that kind of thing.
sort of seasonal stair, something like that. I think one of the next steps in the process here is really meeting with the abutter for what they're planning to do for any resiliency that they're considering, and how they want to see the interaction occur as they're the neighbor to this, and for the near term and for the long term. So I think there's still a little bit of work on that interaction that's important.
I was gonna ask I'm playing this scenario out in my head. If we went and we talked to Mr. Wolf about, how do you feel about having a boardwalk in front of your house? Are you planning to raise your house? And then would it be that if you did that and you had a dune, would it be that basically he would end up with a set of stairs? Say he raised his house, so he'd have a set of stairs down from his house, across his yard, then a set of stairs up to the boardwalk, over and down. You could access, that's how that would function? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the only, I don't know, others can speak to this better than I, but the only challenge is if we're going to maintain this 10-to-1 or even this profile of the 10-to-1 to 7-to-1, that's pushing us back into, his deck area. So we would have to look at what's feasible in terms of steeper slopes if we were to create a dune in front, water side of his home. What do you think,
Yeah,
Tom?
and I think, I agree with that, but I think if he's going to want the structure in front of his house, he's going to want that elevated. So
Yes.
you have to, I think what Rachel was saying, and maybe I misunderstood you, Rachel, but if he did raise his house and have that
I see.
ability, then we could.
I can't picture him wanting it if he didn't raise his house.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't pick. Yeah, I can't either.
No,
That's
no.
That to me is the only way that would work.
Yes.
right. Yeah, and that's what I'm with the house raising. Yes, because you can incorporate the dune into being under the house or right up. We can work on that grading and doing that.
Got it. Thank
But
you.
when he raises the house, if I were there, I would probably want to raise it and move it and have people going along the street side rather than people going across the front of my house.
Yeah, can I jump in? I was just gonna ask the same question about the proposed sidewalk that you've got in front. Could that be extended, Matt, to satisfy your,
It may be, I mean, that's, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
because then that's sort of simple and maybe we could pick the decking up beyond, further down. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if we ever imagined it.
Yeah.
I mean, we did, in our original designs, we saw it going all the way, but
Yeah.
that was part of the berm and the multimodal path as well.
And that's years in the future.
Yeah,
Right.
but if we've got a sidewalk already there, then maybe that could be
This,
pushed down.
yeah, this gentleman is an interesting one, Mr. Wolf, and I think it would be worth having a follow-up conversation with him because he wants a bulkhead. So
Yeah.
he might want that protection in front of his
Front, it would
house,
do that,
right? So it's an interesting, we should really meet with him.
yeah, that's what I'm
Was
looking
he the one that was planning on moving his house towards the water, or is it somebody else?
I don't
That's
know.
further down, I think.
at. To the right, they did.
Alright,
Yeah.
because
I might be able to help with this one, because I.
right on the street, right on the street. That house.
Vince,
Thank you. So I met with Mr. Wolf a few weeks ago, and there is a small retaining wall on his property, kind of a bulkhead wall, actually, not a retaining wall.
You can see it right here. Yeah.
And his plan is more in line with extending that across his property. So if you could just kind of like put in a dashed line or just extend that line, Laura, and then you could see how that sweep could kind of catch up with what he is looking at for his property. He was also receptive to the idea that the town could work with him to assist with permitting and getting through the various permitting agencies so that he could do something like this, so that we could also have the discussion about what might go on the waterfront part of his property in the future. It was an open conversation, no decisions, no discussions, no commitments, but very frank and forward and accepting.
Vince, I would recommend maybe before or whoever's following up. I know Adrian has some great expertise about what might be permittable here. So before the town commits to helping him with the bulkhead, let's get everyone together and see what we think is feasible.
Sure thing. And it's also worth mentioning that he did have some kind of application. I don't know if it was approved or not a couple of decades ago. So that there were plans, there was something on paper. I don't know if it went to a commission at the time or through any agency, but he is looking to revive that. It might have been permitted, I just don't remember at this moment.
Just to add on to that, that bulkhead extension is, his plan for that is to replace what was an existing bulkhead before he bought it. And during the buying process, it was removed.
Yeah, he told us about that.
Didn't even know about it and just showed up and it was already gone.
Oh.
So this is something historically, it's been an extension of the bulkhead coming from the adjacent property to the north.
did the seller, I wonder if the seller had an unpermitted structure that had to be removed for the city.
He could have been.
Yeah, that's what it
But he
says.
might not have mentioned that it was unpermitted.
I was gonna say, that has to be before.
Can I say one more thing about this and then I'll be quiet because I know I've talked a lot today.
Yes, please.
The only other thing I want to say is there's where is it? It's not Warren's Landing. Is it the Wood property? What is the,
That's out there.
do you know the house?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
So there's a house that is literally on Matticat Beach and I've been keeping an eye on it. They just raised it up on pilings, like full piling. I mean, it looks like it's something from North Wharf. And
Oh my God.
it's sort of what I would envision something like that happening here. It's the first time I've seen it on
You mean
Nantucket.
across the driveway from?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you mean, it's way up there.
It's way up there. So what they did was they, instead of moving it forward, right, they moved it back as far as they could go on back on their lot, which is not very far. And then they jacked it up to probably over my head.
Rachel, where is that located?
Warren's Landing / the other end of Viewpoint Road, is what she's talking about.
It's 55 Warren Landing Road, it's right next to it.
It's worth going to take a look at.
Yeah.
Because I can see it being a trajectory that things go,
Well,
for
that's-
people who can't keep going back.
That's all, they're all gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to do any improvements to their residence, and they're gonna be required by building code to do that.
Yeah, and I'd also say that they're, while going up and raising your house is permittable, I'm not sure that going forward would be. Moving seaward would probably not be allowed.
Yeah, and especially there, I think it transitions to a velocity zone, the closer to the beach that you get.
Mm.
Velocity flood zone.
Can you talk about the retaining walls a little bit on the, like what is the temporary one? What does that mean? And then the one on the south?
Todd, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So the one on the south, let's talk about the one on the south first, and I think it's a little the exact extent of it still needs to be.
This is diagrammatic, yes.
Yeah. But basically, to terminate the dune at the property line, we have an elevation difference that we can't go onto the abutter's property. So what we're utilizing is basically a sheet pile wall, or but it's made out of FRP is what we're proposing, so that it will have no corrosion issues or anything else moving forward. And you really won't see any of it. It'll be all buried by dune, but it's just holding the dune sand back from the abutting property. And the temporary one is how and this is again still needing further discussion with the abutter, but that's as you move on to the additional phases or whatever the abutter decides to do, that's as part of this phase 1, it's needed to stay to hold back the dune at the north end, and then as we continue with phase 2, whatever that makes up would come out, and the dune would be continued on, or some other aspect with the abutter. So right now it's needed for this layout. If the abutter decides to do something, it would definitely possibly change. The other aspect, and the reason why we wanted some structure here, is the velocity increases that Woods Hole Group had concerns about at the end of this, and by having the temporary retaining wall in a flood scenario, that we can actually deploy between two structures so that the velocity doesn't damage what we're working on and increase flows in this area. So still working on it, but that's until we talked with the abutter and get their input on what they're looking at doing, and how we can incorporate this with their property plans, then this is what we need for now. Similarly, over by where we have the parking area and the restroom, that's just because we're not moving the restroom at this time, or considering it. So to be able to meet grade, we're having to just hold back the landward side of the dune from that current elevation and the proposed offloading parking spot for the boardwalk access.
If we wanted to lift, correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, if we wanted to lift up that structure, you could continue, the grade across and just retain on this edge.
Yeah. You put it as part of the structure and basically just put it on part of their foundation. Does that help explain it, Liz?
Yeah, thank you. And then we're still gonna be having essentially the retaining wall between the road and the dune.
Yeah,
Yes.
the landscape knee wall. Yep.
And that would be we can continue to develop this and come back to you with more of a material expression, but the benches that Lena was showing, we would want it to be in that vocabulary. So there would be a retaining structure that would be cladded or surfaced with a wood bench that's in that vocabulary. Other design comments, thoughts before we move to permitting?
I think it looks good.
Great. Glad to hear it.
sidewalk stuff.
Was that not, I can't hear you, sorry.
Yes, hi, Laura.
You can hear him all
Hi.
the way.
I couldn't tell if you're talking to
being
me or to
quiet.
your neighbor.
Anything today, but I have to. This sidewalk idea on that side, it's one of those never gonna happen things, like in my mind. I just don't see it. So sharing a road, and this is what we get into, this is a sharrow, you know that term, Matt, they use.
Yep.
This is a road that, in my opinion, is gonna end up being more defined in the future where people, I get really mad. You guys don't see what I like. I get pissed when people pass bicycles I have this little imaginary spot, East Creek Road to town. You shouldn't be passing bikes unless there's nobody around at all. Nothing coming, like that's it, which is rare, okay? This Washington Street, passing a bike on Washington Street should be, I'm not gonna say illegal, but like it should be frowned upon. It's the highest level.
You know, it is illegal.
You
gotta give them.
I know, but you're never gonna enforce all this, man.
Yeah,
You got
I understand.
all the water bottles that are illegal are coming on the festival.
No, I understand.
But anyway, whatever, I'm sick of talking about all that. So my point though is, I think settling on a better plan for the road and the sharing and all of that, and concentrating on this is your walking mechanism in the future for tourists, for visitors, for families, whatever. But at the same time, at some point, those poles, so help me God, in my lifetime, we're gonna get out of the sun. We have
can
a great
dream.
sidewalk, it's just got all these poles in it. It's insanity that goes on here. To this day, it's still like this. And I think that is, because I hear what she's saying, and I completely agree with it. If you bought the rest of the lots, we could fix it. But like, I don't know what the answer is. No, but I'm serious, like, you're not gonna get all these properties to be gone by the time this project is moving forward now. I'd rather concentrate on your dream of a boardwalk around this area you've talked about for 20 years. Than get all bogged down in this little sidewalky stuff, because that street really is kind of a multi-purpose. You're gonna see more of these LS vehicles toting people to wherever they're going. There's gonna be more of that as time goes on. So I don't know what else to say about the width of that road. It's just the way it is.
I think Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, and Lena, were we changing this to a concrete sidewalk, or are we just continuing the current shared lane of that area to the ADA ramp?
So we haven't
Oh, you're
totally
talking
figured
about that thing. That's
Yeah.
not, yeah.
this.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about the extension of the sidewalk, right, Nat?
I'm talking about discussion about this,
Right.
yeah, like this
Okay.
little thing in the front was done for truck turning.
Yeah.
So whatever we need to do with that, we can do, because now we don't have to worry about the trucks going over there, because we fixed the intersection after 75 years.
Yeah, so we wanna
Of waiting.
keep that
But
now,
doesn't that
but
have
then
to go
try
to
to
traffic
extend
just to get
it.
the-
Probably, yeah, but I'm just saying, that's what happened. That little thing there was done, I don't like talking about this at a meeting when I'm on tape, but I know how this got done, and it needed to. You couldn't turn, like it was
Right.
ridiculous. Now,
Yeah.
that is not necessarily a sidewalk, it's just a space that got made for the front tires to pull forward further.
But now it can be.
And
Now, you whatever you want, because there's plenty of space. There's no.
I think that's what we're proposing, it being a shared lane, so that it's just part of the road, making it easier for
That
bikes to
should be
pause.
walking. That could be part of reconfiguring, if there's ever a plan to reconfigure these crosswalks.
Mhm.
That's all part of it, in my opinion, because that doesn't need to be, the road anymore,
Right.
So,
And
sorry if I was getting confused between the two issues.
No, you're fine. I think our main concern, especially since we weren't able to eliminate the stair on this side, we just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure if someone using, a wheelchair or needing a ramp is coming across this sidewalk,
That
they
should
have
be
a
fine.
way to get to a ramp. So they're
And
going to
that's a
come
good
down.
spot for it.
Yep,
I mean-
and then you also have the Salt Marsh Center folks who can come right across and use the ramp. So I think we felt like that was a pretty good resolution, but we need to provide some kind of access to get from this crosswalk to the ramp. And
There
that's,
should be two. I completely agree with that. That's good.
okay.
And
Yeah, and I think the other thought was that
both walkers and truck drivers, because right now.
You don't want a raised curve there.
I don't
Oh my
know,
God.
I'm not saying either,
No.
but it needs to be, that needs to be resolved. so
Well,
that everybody knows.
I
what's
think
going
it could
on
be
where.
paint or different material, but not a curve. Yikes.
You could do a
Well,
rolled curb or something. Well, we can
Just
look at
saying,
that detail in more,
I don't need another guy in the street right in that spot. But
Yeah.
maybe a flush curve, something that defines it. I'm fine with
That's
that.
to define,
But not
the
a
walkers
raised
know where
curve.
to go and the truck drivers know where to go.
Yeah. And I think too, Laura, I don't need to keep talking, but
No, you're fine.
that intersection, okay, and I'm so happy that that got done. Because there was some pushback, believe it or not, I fixed that, oh my God. But anyway. It was kind of striped the way it is, like, because it had to hurry up and get striped. There's definitely room for improvement there. I'm in favor of some kind of Belgian block little dingy dog thing, triangle-y thing, something that looks better like we did in front of the, from the end of North Water to, the hotel, you know, to the other hotel, whatever it is now. That one, you know, that's kind of nice, you know, because it is a big space of pavement. I mean, I kind of hate that around here. We try to do something better. But at the same time, you don't want tires twisting and breaking the bricks and or whatever we end up putting there. You know what I mean? Because when you turn, the tires bite into the ground and pull and push things. So
And that pavement
anything.
idea would be
Yeah.
good, because right now, there's an extra lane sort of in the.
I know.
middle going down
people,
Francis,
I saw someone.
Nobody knows what to do.
I saw, listen, you have to use your left directional to go straight on the Nantucket in 3 places, okay? 3, you figure out what those 3 are and you'll be a winner, okay? If there's 2 obvious ones and there's another one you gotta think of. So in the summertime, people don't know that you gotta use your left directional to go straight. So you have to wait for the car. So now, to rejiggling that intersection combined a little bit, I know this isn't part of escape or whatever we're doing, whoever all these people are, I'm just saying. It needs to be thought of though, while we're working on all this, because it is kind of part of it, a little bit. Crossing, safety is so important.
There's space to put something in that you could actually stand on in the middle and then.
There's
cross the
there's
next
good
one.
material that you can use
Has
around the
Mike
trucks.
Burns ever been asked to comment on, or?
On this
something
particular
else?
thing?
I know.
Not necessarily, but he knows about it. I mean, I think personally, the crosswalk in front of the new wide intersection is, it's not that it's dangerous, it's actually, it goes against all the new way of thinking. It's too far to walk. That's why they fixed the intersection of Tom Nevis. Tom Nevis crossing was a mile long. That's why they did that. But at the same time, everybody can see what's coming here. The sightline improvement is so good that you
No one knows
can't.
where to go, I think.
No, I understand that part. I'm talking about the safety aspect. It's wicked safe. You just gotta sit in your car and wait for the person to cross the street half a mile. So I like the idea of utilizing that little thing we did on Friday afternoon to get that fixed. And to rejiggle that and make it for pedestrians and nice, I think that's good. Because we don't need it for trucks anymore. Don't need it. So I'm just telling you don't.
So Nat, there's a name for what you're saying. It's called pedestrian refuge.
Refuge, there you go. The refuge.
Yes, that is severely lacking in that
Yeah,
intersection. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Refuge.
You don't encourage him, Chuck. So-
It's a word that.
No, I know.
Nat and I don't agree very often, but yes, this is a time.
Love it.
No,
All
it
right.
is the time to kind of incorporate some of these improvements into this, even though it's not out of the scope of this project. I think it's good.
Should we talk about permitting? Any last design comments before we pivot?
That's where everything falls apart.
Sure, let's talk about permitting. Thank
Okay.
you, Laura.
No problem. Todd,
Slides,
you want us
there
to
was
share the
still-
slides you sent us?
Yeah, they were in your package that you sent.
Yeah, they're in
over,
our
so-
package. So Lena, maybe you
Okay.
just keep sharing if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Exactly. Grab those.
Yeah, I think, you know, the design team has really been going back and forth and working together and with Vince and Leah on our meetings to just go through and look at what, you know, what this project is in the phase and going through it's a coastal resiliency project, really was what we're trying to, you know, achieve here. And the benefit for many aspects and the need is to provide the ADA access and boardwalk for future phases. So I think minimizing those impacts through these resource areas and developing a successful dune with Woods Holes Group's input, everybody's been really working together and getting to the point where we're at now. And I'm really going to turn it over to Adrienne because she's our permitting expert, and I'm going to basically let her talk about where we're at and, you know, kind of the next steps of how we approach this permitting process.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody here. Just listening to the conversation today, it sounds like we were already going in the direction of understanding that at this point in the design, some of it is going to be directed by permitting constraints. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, and hopefully it will be very refreshing for you to know that you're really ahead of the game on this. So last time we talked about permitting and regulatory programs that are going to be involved in this particular project. It is the standard Thanksgiving dinner of permits, which means there's a lot of them, but we kind of know what to expect. So we're not really surprised by any of the regulatory agencies that will be involved, and we're even off the hook in terms of Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program and the Division of Fish and Wildlife, because there's no priority habitat on the site, and then also the shellfish growing and habitat zones are restricted. So we will be communicating with Division of Marine Fisheries, but we don't anticipate any kind of guidelines that would impact the installation or the dune nourishment activities that would be in their interest on the shellfish beds. So the one thing to keep in mind here is that Mass DEP waterways, wetlands, and the NEPA office will all be overlapping somewhat in jurisdiction, and then they'll also be leaning on the Office of Coastal Zone Management for comments and guidelines as to how to observe the regulations specifically for coastal dune and coastal beach. And so I've provided a couple of slides just to follow here, just to talk about like the pinch points that we have in the regulations that are dictating a little bit of the design of the project and are going to kind of continue to do that. So you can go to the next slide, please, Lena. The first is specifically regarding coastal beach, and we talked a little bit about this already, and it's specifically commenting in the regulations that any project on the coastal beach shall not have an adverse effect on any other portion of the coastal beach, which is essentially to say that when we're doing this dune nourishment and beach grading process, we cannot impact the existing grades on the abutting property. So that is controlling a little bit in terms of what we're able to do to design the dune and the volume of dune that we're going to be installing on that left-hand side of the plan that I've circled in red. As you can see, the grading that we originally proposed has changed significantly. It's a lot more linear because we're anticipating the beach to reestablish itself over time by redistributing the sediment according to the tide cycle. So we are anticipating it to be fairly, parallel to the existing high tide line. And this is such a small site that we don't think too much of the sediment will move around. And it's also not, a terribly high velocity and high tide storm surge kind of scenario, except in the case of course, larger storms. So that's the one piece. We're still kind of looking at that, and it's continuing to evolve, but we talked about this already in your questions, and just want you to know this is the regulatory performance standard and the statutes and generally how they're observed by DP and the Office of Coastal Zone Management that are helping us kind of make a plan for regrading the dune back down to the beach in such a way that it isn't going to eventually be a lateral movement up into the abutter's property. So you can go to the next slide. And that one is looking specifically at the coastal dune. Now, this is really the discussion of the seaward side of the boardwalk and those staircase landings or the ramp landing. The very good news is that the second regulatory reference that I'm making here is essentially relieving the first regulatory reference and specifically saying that the DEP and Coastal Zone Management really appreciate boardwalks and elevated structures, pedestrian walkways, and things like that that keep people off of the dune. So that's a really nice thing for us to be able to lean on in terms of the development of this particular project. However, we do have to take into consideration when the water redistributes the dune across the lateral portion of the beach, it is going to continue to change what the face of that dune looks like. And so when we're installing the landing, the first being that handicap landing for the ADA access, we have to be able to predict a little bit how much the grading may change over time as compared to what we're proposing to install. And then you'll see, you know, in this right-hand picture, there's the additional concept of staircases coming off of the dune, and that may be a situation, just as we were mentioning earlier, where we can propose a staircase, but also kind of plan to be installing something that's more temporary over time, because we do anticipate the face of the dune to shift and change a little bit. It's not a tremendously dynamic situation on this particular beach, but it is going to evolve. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that in the same, this information comes out of the Coastal Manual, which is it's a large document, report that's produced by Coastal Zone Management and DEP that generally supports conservation commissions and other administrating authorities of the Wetlands Protection Act as to how they would generally like to see the regulations observed. However, it is not a hard and fast rule. And in addition, in the performance standards for coastal dune, there's some discussion about the size of a pedestrian boardwalk. And it specifically talks about this concept of no adverse effects to the dune and the capacity of the dune to be able to maintain a vegetated cover. So that's something we're going to have to think about in terms of the overall footprint of the boardwalk and just be aware of that in time, because we are also only elevating it about 18 inches. So there may be some shadowing effects and things like that that we have to try to keep in mind so that we are able to support those American beach grass plantings underneath and make sure that they continue to grow and keep the dune stable on both sides of the boardwalk, as we know that the front side is likely to evolve a little bit as it goes down to Coastal Beach. So the final point here is that we're making this case of a hardship for ADA compliance to kind of describe why we are producing a boardwalk that is larger than what is recommended in the Coastal Manual. And that means that we have to be able to show that we're providing that ADA access from landward right down to the being low water side, right? Because if at any point in the system of the boardwalk, we're not able to, you know, provide ADA compliance, then our argument for this hardship really starts to fall apart. So that's something we have to keep in mind as we're, you know, going through the design, talking about things like guardrails, thinking about how the elevations are going to match up to the top of the boardwalk at the top of the dune crest. We do have to climb up a little bit faster on the landward side now because we've pulled the dune back a little bit. And, you know, we'll see a little bit more as we continue to kind of develop those elevations and what the grading plan really looks like as a cross section across the beach, how much we have to alter the look of the boardwalk to try to make sure we're conforming to those ADA standards. But that's all. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
I have one, Adrian. So what you were saying about providing that continuous ADA access down to the mean low water, what does that mean when you're landing on a beach, which is not an accessible surface?
Yeah, I mean, so we're only talking about the structure, right?
Just the
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking, we're installing a structure, that's the impact.
Yep.
And so we have to be able to show that the reason we're installing a structure that is that large is because we are providing this ADA access up and over the dune. Access on the beach is really the business of the user.
Okay, thank you.
The town also has beach wheelchairs that
Right.
they leave at some of the beaches that are available. So there is stuff like that here.
Okay.
Right.
But do we need seasonal matting or something from the boardwalk to the water's edge?
I doubt it, but I don't know.
know.
I doubt it. They
Yeah.
don't do that. Yeah.
And we'll see, yeah, exactly. And it may be that seasonal matting is actually the best way to deal with coming off of the boardwalk and landing on the beach. We have to kind of understand a little bit more about how dynamic that primary frontal dune point is going to be once we have this beach nourishment fill in place. It may be that it's very stable and we're able to come up with a very clear location and line to install a permanent wood ramp structure that would land down on the beach. And it may be that it appears that it's going to be way too dynamic. And so there will have to be like annual grading to try to make sure that a Moby mat, for example, could be rolled out to land from the boardwalk to the beach.
Yeah. To elaborate on that a little bit, I think the intent of our design would be for the ramp would be that it would actually get buried into the beach to allow some of that 1 to 2 foot swing, if any, that were to occur. That I think Joe might be able to talk on it, and the dynamic nature that might not be expected to be much in this area, so we can get down to a good elevation that even a storm event really won't require an immediate repair to the beach, and then have that consistent seasonal access, whether it be a Moby mat or just providing whatever the town wants to do to get them down closer to the water's edge.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't see a whole lot of erosion in our cross-shore model, given the scenarios that we ran. Maybe 1 or 2 there, maybe a little bit more movement down by the water line, but we'll keep looking at that.
That guy just said. That,
Joe?
that's what I was thinking about a minute ago.
Uh-huh.
If we have aerials, I don't know, I'm sure we have some kind of pictures of it. This area doesn't change much.
No.
And this isn't like a
Right.
beach like that.
No.
This is sort of, I'm more concerned with easterly wind stuff and tides at the same time the wind comes in
Right.
than I am about normal. Normal is gonna stay the same. Like it's
Right.
just occasional bad easterly. And there's also there's a possibility, I mean, you don't know how this could work down the road, some type of continued, I don't know, some sort of piling thing, something offshore a little that kind of protects from the harbor, upper harbor. We already have that with the town pier. You have to remember, that's not old. Town pier is not that old in comparison to the regular marina. So I just don't think we're gonna have a problem with it. You compare it to a real beach versus this is not really, this is like children's beach.
Right.
In theory, you know what I mean?
Don't
Hate to
expect
say it
that
like that, but it is.
Sand movement.
So,
Yeah.
Are you referring to the wave fence on the end of town pier?
I'm talking, yeah, I mean, whatever's there that kind of protects a little bit.
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
using that as an example. We never even had the town pier. And that's not that old, okay? What has the town pier done in all that construction to protect Washington Street over the years? I mean, I can't answer that question, but I know that somebody has the answer and somebody has the aerials to look at what the changes have been, other than all the stuff you can't step on down there. Don't walk barefooted down there. So I'll tell you that. But it's I'm just saying this should get through our permitting, because it's not, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, we're just trying to fluff things up a little bit, and make it more modernized. That's how I see this. Don't you, Alan? I'm looking at you because this is your thing, way before all these people do. You wanted this stuff done, and I'm like excited about it, you know what I mean? But anyway. Was it gonna be this difficult though, was it, Alan? To get all this done?
It's a challenge.
Jesus, brutal, brutal. Should have done this in the sixties when they needed a permit.
Yeah, to your point, Nat, the long-term shoreline change data, so past observations don't show a whole lot of movement in this area, very, very low rates of change.
Awesome. Right,
I have to hop off, but if anything comes up, I'll connect with Laura and our team.
Thanks, Joe.
Go for you.
See you soon.
Joe,
Good. Yeah, I couldn't see him talking before, so I didn't know it was him that was talking. So,
Anything else we want to cover here? Any questions? Vince, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, one kind of other perspective on ADA access to the beach. So it's great that if have Moby mats or something to that effect. In storm events, this will be cut off like any other beach. But this one particular beach has one other influence that very few other beaches have. That if you're on that beach in a calm day, you can still get waves on it from passing boats. They're not supposed to have wake. Some of them do. And if you're on the beach in a wheelchair, you're going to get bogged down if you suddenly get a wave that runs up around your feet or your wheelchair, and then suddenly you're going to sink. So there's just a safety consideration for ADA access to a beach on a working waterfront. You don't necessarily have to worry about that at, say, Jetty's Beach, where we have the ADA access we used to have a Moby mat, and now we have a boardwalk that gets put in for the season every year. That ends way before the high tide line. This gets significantly closer to the high tide line in this area. So with a working waterfront, we just need to think about how practical it might be for ADA safety.
Good point.
all right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to go,
I
I'm
did
just,
notice that I did not update where it says the next meeting. So the next meeting is actually November 14th. And then the following meeting should be the 28th, but that's Friday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
So I think we should cancel that. So we'll just have one meeting in November.
Yeah.
November 14th.
And just to forecast a little what we'll be sharing, we didn't talk about it today, but we've also been pushing with the Hazen team on some of the stormwater modeling and development. So that will be foregrounded in the next discussion, as well as advancements to the design and permitting discussion.
thank you, Laura.
And we can talk about whether we need to replace that Friday after Thanksgiving meeting with an off week meeting, but we'll regroup with the team and follow up with y'all.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for great discussion as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else to cover today, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Everyone in favor?
I thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Great,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks.
Jeff,
See you soon.
Bye.
Yep.